I think this is going to be a very pleasant evening for all of us here tonight. So welcome, Dr. Renee.
I've been involved in this community for over 50 years, but I'm still brand new to it, if that makes any sense. If it doesn't, I'm going to clarify it for you. A lot has changed since I went through my pregnancy, birth mother experience some years ago, and I'm going to lead into that right now. A lot has changed. The feelings, the intensity, the complexity, the pain, the trauma will never change because adoption is messy. It's one of the most unnatural things that you can do is surrender a child that you have just given birth to. But in my case, it was the best decision that I've ever made, and it was the best decision that I could have made for both me and my daughter. No PowerPoint, no slides. Let me get into a stream of consciousness and tell you a little bit about my personal story and take you on this journey with me. It's not a fun story. In fact, it's a story that's full of a lot of pain. It's full of a lot of trauma, a lot of setback. But it's a story that has an ultimate positive ending and a lot of growth and maturity for me. So let me just tell you the story. I got pregnant when I was 15 years of age. The part that I don't talk about very much is that, in fact, I don't think I've said publicly what I'm about to say. But I was forced into an unwanted sexual encounter by a relative. Okay? By a relative. I've never said that publicly. And so that really complicated my story. The mind of a 15, 16-year-old doesn't make the best decisions to begin with. But my personal story became very complicated by the fact that I found it difficult, if not impossible, to explain to my parents what happened to me. Looking back on it, those were the people that I should have explained what happened to me. But I did know that if I told my dad what had happened to me, he would have murdered my relative. He just would have murdered him. He just would have done that. I know that about him. And so at that young age, I knew I had to be very careful and very protective with this information. When my father found out that I was pregnant, I feared the moment. I waited until the last minute, until I could not hide my pregnancy anymore. And when we sat down, my parents sent me to the doctor. And when we sat down that day to explain what was going on, my father hit the roof. He just snapped. He blew up. He knocked me down, chased me around the dining room table in my parents' house, knocked my mother down getting to me, but I was fast enough to run down the stairs of a two-family house. My mother's sister lived downstairs. Luckily for me, my father didn't like her. So I was able to go downstairs and close the door and hide. That's the only reason why I was able to get away with him. But he told me to get out of his house. I was 16, a junior in high school. I grew up in a family that was education focused. We were going to college. I grew up between two boys. My older brother was a senior in high school. I was a junior. My dad worked 2 full-time jobs. We were a working class family trying to get ahead, and we were college bound. My father tried to dismember me, like I said, and told me to get out. And so that frames my journey. I actually did get out. I went to stay with an aunt for about a week or two, and then I went to a home for unwed mothers. I don't even think they exist anymore, but this is what when girls got pregnant, at least some girls, they got sent away. And so I got sent away. I guess I was about 7 months pregnant. And I was there until I delivered my daughter. It was an awful experience. I don't have anything else to say about it. I isolated myself. I couldn't stand it. I stayed in my room until it was time for me to give birth to this baby. And I went to the hospital. I was by myself. I was in labor for almost 24 hours before they decided to perform a C-section on me. It was a miserable experience. It's by myself. I remember limping down to the nursery to see her, not being able to hold her very well because of this incision. But the fact that I had a C-section made it easier for me to stay with her for a couple of extra days. But that day came where I signed these papers. I got a chance to see her one last time, and that was it. That was it. Drove home. My mother came to pick me up. I was in Rochester. I gave birth to her in Rochester. I was living in Buffalo, about an hour away. So, got in the car, drove back. It's early April now. She was born March 20th. It's early April. And I go back to school. Go back to school. I would start my senior year in high school that September. Got off to a great start. Elected senior class president of my my class of maybe 600 kids. Got accepted in all the colleges I applied to, including Cornell, which is where I did my undergraduate work. I couldn't wait to get out of my parents' house and go to college. I struggled through school. I really did. I was a star at the end of high school, but the impact, the trauma, all that I had internalized began to manifest. And, I made it through Cornell all right. And I did okay. I could have done great, but, I didn't understand the importance of talk and therapy and working through it. But what I did basically was take this child and drop her in a black hole, sign and drive. I signed and I walked out of the hospital almost like nothing had happened, but it had. It had. And so, like I said, it would begin to manifest when I was in college, but I pushed through. I did. I had to. And then I moved to New York right away. I moved to New York City to start my career in the next phase of my life. I would pursue a very successful career in advertising, marketing on Madison Avenue. And I would establish myself in New York, where I already knew a lot of people because I went to Cornell, and a lot of kids from Cornell who went to Cornell were from New York City. So I set myself up in New York. But success would never be complete for me. Relationships would never be completely complete for me because there was always something missing. And it didn't stop me from functioning, but there was just always something working in the back. Where is she? How is she? Who's got her? How is she doing? I just could not forget this experience. How could you forget an experience like this? You can't. And so as we have evolved into open adoption, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. I'm going to make a strong case for it with some nice guardrails and guidelines. But again, placing a child for adoption can feel like a very unnatural thing to do. But I'd like to make a strong case for normalizing adoption. Okay, I'd like to make a strong case for normalizing adoption in the sense that I'd like to break down some of the misconceptions and stereotypes and preconceived notions about adoption. I actually grew up in a family. I had a number of adopted cousins, and so adoption was not far-fetched or strange. It was just part of our extended family, and it did not have any negative resonance with me. I had about 5 or 6 adopted cousins, but I had to start thinking about adoption differently when I joined the adoption community, and I also joined it, but nobody knew it because nobody knew that I had given birth to this child. So again, back to normalizing adoption and leaning in and just extending life and grace to children that may not be in our bloodline was something, like I said, that came very natural to me. I want to also say to you that why would I take this title, Dream Big? Dream big. I'm in the middle of explaining to you how I was struggling with this adoption that I knew nothing about the child that I placed. So what am I dreaming big? I was dreaming one day, just maybe one day I'll get a chance to find her or connect with her. From your vantage point, if you are looking to adopt or if you are a birth mother, a birth parent, I want you to dream big too. There are going to be obstacles. This process usually takes a little bit longer than you want it to. There may be some setbacks. Like I said, surrendering a child is not easy, but dream big, because if you're surrendering a child, you are doing it for his or her best interest and for yours. Let's hope that you can have an agreement that keeps you up to date and apprised of where your child is and how he or she is doing. I would make a very strong case for an open adoption. But dream big, because dreams do come true. And I'm an optimist, even though I went through a very dark and difficult period in my life. With the resources and the tools and the support available in the adopted community today, you will have the resources and the team of people around you that will make your transition a smooth one. So back to me. I am in my 20s, I'm in my 30s, I'm in New York, I'm doing well, I'm living life, things are going well, but this gnawing sensation is still plucking away at me. I'm going to try and do something that I just did with Steve. This is a folder, okay? You can't see what it is, but inside this folder is a booklet of information that was given to me when I signed up for a search firm. No, not looking for a job search firm. Adopted Search. This is an organization, and I bet you they're out of business now, because now you spit in a cup to start a DNA search. But this organization was called ALMA, A-L-M-A, and it was an acronym for, I can't remember, but I signed up to get on a list to get as much information as I could about doing a search for my daughter. So I'm going to make a long story short. She actually found me. She found me about 6 years ago. It was one of the most surreal moments of my life. I want you to know that we have developed a remarkable relationship. And of course, nothing's perfect. It's taken some time. We've had to get to know each other. We are two adults getting to know each other. But this is a reunion that has worked remarkably well. And so I would encourage anyone who's thinking about it to, weigh the pros and cons. But it is your birthright to understand where you came from. And if you are searching for a child, as a parent who has placed a child, it's that black hole, that feeling of that black hole that will stay with you if you don't find at least some information about how your child is, where they are, and how they are doing. I think that's the least that you should expect now and be entitled to as a parent who has surrendered a child. Adoption is messy. It's complicated. It is. But it is so necessary. It is so necessary. I never thought of myself. And like I said, I started my life being surrounded by so many adoptees. It never occurred to me that I would be a member of that community as well. So what I'm trying to do now is find my place in the world of advocacy and support and policy. That I am sitting at the table along with Steve, the board of directors for the National Council for Adoption, trying to guide and steer this organization and help it grow and take it to the next level. But we are committed. I am committed. And this is one of the reasons why I have leaned into this org, is to help children, adoptees, children in foster care, find permanent homes. I was blessed. I was extraordinarily blessed to have my daughter adopted by a single mom who made her into a beautiful, beautiful human being. What a blessing. I want to see every child have this option, have this opportunity. And so I have found myself, like I said, I have found my way into a national adoption organization where I'm rolling up my sleeves and I'm sitting at the policy table. So I feel like I'm talking a lot, okay?
We have a question from Lance. His question is as follows. Dr. Alexander, I like your idea of normalizing the adoption experience for those involved. How do you think we can better normalize the adoption experience for birth mothers?
We're working on that. Birth mothers are moving out of the shadows and into the light. Birth mothers are slowly getting the kind of, I don't even want to use the word recognition. I would rather use the word support because it is a very difficult decision. People are second guessing you. You are second guessing yourself. I think that as we are more open at the dinner table, in our discussions, in our family conversations, in our community, church conversations, as we are more open about adoption, about the adoption experience, I think that birth mothers will continue to rise and get the kind of support. Again, we have been the forgotten or the distant stepchild of the triad that I described at the very beginning of my talk. And so we just have to keep elevating people's consciousness around the birth mother experience, because it's a very difficult position to be in. But the dream big piece is to be hopeful and optimistic that you will have a relationship, however you structure that with your adoptive parents and with your child to your satisfaction. And I hope that is a feeble attempt, at least, at answering your question.
Thank you. We have a few more questions. This one coming from Liesel. She says, policy-wise, what do you think needs to change about infant adoption in the U.S.?
Liesel, I think that it needs to be less expensive. Okay, I think that cost is a major barrier. The process is time-consuming, but I certainly think that we have to find a way to lower the costs, because the cost can be a barrier to a lot of families. I think that's the primary, and again, misconceptions and I think stereotypical wives' tales and misconceptions about adoptions, about the process of adoption. We have to continue to work on those as well. I could do to sustain myself would be to just suck it up and go forward. But, unresolved issues will manifest. And so I do remember that when I first got home, my mother tried to get me to see a psychiatrist, but she takes me to this psychiatrist who I just didn't make a connection with. And so I'm sorry about that, because I could have used some a counseling intervention. I was young. I didn't talk about it. I couldn't talk to my family about it. I could not tell them what happened. So I kept it all bottled up inside. I think in fact, I know that talk is a very healthy way of processing your feelings and your pain. And I would have been more open. I would have been much more engaged in talking about my experience than I was. So get some support, talk. There are resources here, and I find talk to be a very, very healthy approach.
Another question: what are some things you have had to work through after reuniting with your daughter?
Oh boy, I'm glad you asked. And how much time do you have? Very seriously, overall, it's been a wonderful and positive experience, and it has been for her as well. But one of the issues that we've had to work through. I mean, it's not a bad issue, but my daughter grew up without a father, but she's had a mother. You see, she had a terrific mother. She had the kind of mother that I wanted her to have. And so I've had to learn how to define my relationship with her. And we have done wonderfully well, but she did have a mom. Okay. And so I've had to be very mindful of what my relationship and my role in her life is going to be. And like I said, overall, we have done well, but we've had to phase each other into each other's lives, if that makes any sense. But it has worked out very, very well. I've been very, very fortunate.
Just what advice do you have for other birth moms and adoptees about reunification?
That I would absolutely go for it. That just like over the course of my life, I had all of these questions about where is she? How is she? Who is she? Is she alive? I think it's only fair for you to, at the very least, get some basic information about your child or your parent. And if you've had a closed adoption and you don't know how they are, where they are, hope for the best, but go for it, because you have a right to know, and I think that they have a right to know as well. And that's only natural. But you have to be prepared for whatever you find. It doesn't always have to be a happy outcome, but be the optimist and hope for it. So go for it. Go for it.
And our last question for now: have you ever had the opportunity to meet or communicate with the adoptive parent? If so, how have those conversations gone?
That's a terrific question. And my daughter's mother died in 2000. She has been deceased for 22 years. And so I only wish that I could have met her. Okay. I only wish that I could have met her to thank her for the extraordinary job that she did that I was not able to do. My college roommate and very closest friend adopted a son who unfortunately was killed about 4 months ago in the line of duty. He was a police officer in Maryland and was shot and killed in the line of duty back in June. And I bring him up because Glenn, what a terrific young man he was. And my college roommate adopted him when he was about 4 years old. She raised him as a single mother. She was not married. When Glenn, his name was Glenn, and Glenn began to find some family members. And I'll never forget, he said to his mother, Mom, I'm really glad that my birth mother is dead, because that way I won't have any conflict. He was actually relieved. Of course, he wanted to meet her, but he didn't feel as though he had to choose. And so I never forgot that. But it's really about communication. It's about communication. My college roommate was not threatened at all by her son finding his family, and even since he, in his passing, he is the DNA is still producing more cousins and close family members. So we live in a time now where we can put the shame, the silence, the guilt, the darkness, and the lack of information behind us. But you really have to be willing to accept what you find, because it's not always going to be a happy ending, but it's worth the shot. You got to go for it.
Renee, this is Steve.
Hey, Steve.
So I just wanted to ask you a question. I know you're very involved as a mentor to young people today, and obviously I think that's based on your life experiences, and you've made your life work to help young people, and very good at that. So where do you see yourself? I know you just turned 39 on your last birthday. So what do you see as the future? What kind of continued contributions do you feel like you want to make to this adoption community that you're now involved in?
I want to serve the community. I'm concerned about foster care. I also realize that there are a lot of things that I want to do, but I really need to focus on a couple of things and do them well. Okay. That said, as I have leaned into this world of adoption, I am very sensitive. Coming as an African-American woman, I am sensitive to the needs of Black and Brown communities. I don't want to limit my concern and my practice to that community, but I want to put a special lens on the outcomes for Black and Brown children in the United States. So that's something that I'm going to be paying very close attention to.
What it was like to reunify with your daughter, and what your relationship is like now with her.
So I started my career on Madison Avenue. I sold advertising space for some very well-known, competitive, prestigious media properties. And I say that to say that I was a person of great confidence, but I was like a wet noodle. I was like, you just would not have believed how I can't even think of the word, how it was a moment that I had been waiting for years and years and years and years. And I still have her first call to me on my phone. I saved her first message to me on my phone. And so we have just had this blossoming relationship. We are truly in awe of the nature-nurture similarities. Not only do we look alike, but we have some awesome similarities. I was a lifeguard, okay? She's a swimmer. She swims twice a week. But beyond that, and it's so much fun. And I realized that it didn't have to work out like this. It didn't have to to end up like this. We look remarkably alike. I don't say this to her, but I'm so proud of the fact that she looks like me. It's just I have so much fun with that. But again, I'm very thankful because had I raised her, we both would have had very different outcomes, very different outcomes. And so the proof that I did the right thing is in the product of what her mother produced. I have so much respect for this woman. I only wish that I could have met her. I only wish that I could have met her. Again, this is complicated because this is not something that you want to do. You don't want to give up a child. But sometimes we have to, and you really want to make the best choices possible for this life. I'm so happy that my mother was able to help me steer me in the right direction. But again, to fast forward, years later, this reunification has it's been awesome, okay? And like I said, it hasn't been perfect. I got these two fantastic grandsons, and we hang out. We have a blast. We have a ball. She got to know my mother before my mother died just a little bit over a year ago. And so it has had some very positive and very powerful outcomes. And we just don't know where something like this is going to take us, but it's worth the ride. I think that I would have been, and I'm a happy person, but I think a part of me always would have been missing had I had to go all of my years without knowing about her, who she was, and how she ended up with her terrific family. She's just a great person. And so I am so blessed.
What is something you wish others knew about living a life as a birth mom in secret?
Oh boy. How miserable I was at times in my life. Okay. How there were times when I felt a level of shame and guilt. Okay. That I could not expose this story, talk about this story. I felt lesser than as a result of this experience. Okay. And I've had to work through all of that, but I'm very happy to see that society has taken some major steps forward, and we have come out of the dark ages, right? And we can put aside words like shame and guilt, okay? And just lean in and be a part of this community and have support now, and have organizations now that support birth mothers, have organizations that supplied resources and counseling, therapy to members of the triad. And so I'm just very happy that these open adoptions, open records, and reunions and searches have finally have caught up to the 21st century. That's me and my daughter. She actually came to visit me this past June. So we're having lunch along beautiful Lake Cayuga and the Finger Lakes. But, our resemblance is, it's remarkable. And just imagine me not being able to, imagine me going through my life without knowing who she was or, what she had turned into, the person she had had turned into. And so, like I said, I'm just proud of the fact that she looks a lot like me. And that's my, I've waited a long time for that kiss. I want you to know I've waited a long time for it, but it was worth the wait. I would do it all over again. I just, it was a tough experience all the way around, but I made the right decisions. I made the right decisions for her. I made the right decisions for me, but it didn't make it any easier. And I keep saying adoption can be messy and complicated. And I will do what I can. It's just funny. Adoption stories seem to come my way, but they're a lot more common than people realize. And when I use my message of normalizing adoption, that's more than just a throwaway phrase, catchphrase. I think that we have to do this as Americans. I think we have the power to raise the consciousness around this issue. And I'm willing to lean in and work with the community. So I'm excited. I am. I'm excited. I never could have imagined me sitting here doing a talk like this. No. But I'm thrilled to be a part of this community and to be able to put my story out here and hope that it helps somebody.
A few questions about fears related to placement, but also fears related to your adoption now. What fears do you have about your connection with your daughter currently?
I don't have any fears. I just don't. Any issue that I have or we have, we can work it out. We have a very good way of communicating, and we've had to learn this. These are two successful grown women who are starting from scratch. Even though they have a powerful connection, you're really starting from scratch. And so it's really good to communicate well and to have an understanding, and if necessary, have some boundaries. Okay. And understand what you're getting into. I don't have any fears. I don't. But for anybody entering into a relationship like this, you must have a very clear understanding and communicate. Communication is the most important thing that I think that you can do. An open door of communication. Work through it, work it out. It's worth it.
Addie is asking for some examples of some of the messy. What examples can you give us of some of the messy?
I did not have an open adoption. I wish I could have. It would have allayed some of my anxieties, apprehensions, uncertainties over the years. But messy it can be, not having boundaries and a defined relationship. And let me talk about open adoptions, because there's some anxiety around this. I am hearing, I am reading, I'm seeing this in the literature and in some of the conversations I'm having. So I think it's, adoptive parents may feel threatened or insecure. Birth parents may feel as though they don't have enough influence or not getting enough information. Make sure you understand. Okay, part of the messiness here is someone feeling that they're not getting enough, someone feeling that this relationship is intrusive. Make sure that you define and detail what it is that you're getting into. Adoption is messy, and I keep using these words because it's unnatural. It's unnatural. I was watching something on the news just a couple of days ago. An elephant somewhere in the United States gave birth to a set of twins, which is rare. And so I saw this mother elephant proudly walking around with her baby little elephants. I don't know, I forget what they're called. But I took a look at this elephant and her twins, and I said, mothers are supposed to be with their children. And so when you give your child away for whatever, because of whatever the circumstance, it's not natural. You know, you might be concerned with what people are thinking about you or saying about you, but you know what? It really doesn't matter. You have to satisfy yourself, your family. You have to make it work for you. That's what I think I'm trying to say. So, you know, you will get feedback and you will get pushback. Adoption can be messy when you're blending families, but, you know, excuse me, it's workable. It's workable. It's doable. It's about communication. Communication and expectations, setting expectations. Anything else?
This one comes from Paige. She says, I was adopted almost 24 years ago and was able to meet my birth mother about 5 years ago. Is there any advice you would give on growing a relationship with a birth mother?
Be very, very thoughtful. Be very considerate. And again, it's communication, because when I look at some of the, I wouldn't even say problems, but what I've had to watch out for is just, you know, what is my role in your life? And it's so interesting because she will often, depending on who it is, as her birth or biological mother, which is fair because she was raised by this dynamic, powerful, wonderful single mom. And so be thoughtful, be considerate, ask questions. I mean, and check in. And don't be afraid to find out how what you are saying is resonating or affecting your birth mother. And don't be afraid to take some chances. Okay, do not be afraid to take some chances and you know, push the envelope a little bit and ask questions and just be honest. Just be authentic. You're going to make some mistakes, but just put it out there, be real, and be thankful, and just be very, very thankful.
Beautiful. Thank you.
There's no playbook, so just go for it. Go for it. And what I say, dream big. Dream big. Make it work. Make it happen. No matter where you are on the triad, okay? Keep a positive, optimistic outlook, okay? If you are looking to adopt a child, it's going to happen, okay? If you are looking for your birth parents, let's hope you find them. And if you are building a relationship with the birth mom or a child that you have placed for adoption, go for it, work it out. It's all about love. Love, love, love.